All right, yeah, guys, doing today, about to hop into a reaction. First things first, though, just make sure you like that video up, hit a like, and full screen, scroll just a little bit, like it up, then full screen it back up. You feel me? So we got part two of How to Defend Your Christianity, or How to Defend Christianity by Mr. Cold Case, J1 and Jay Wallace. You know what to do. We just gonna check it out.
I kind of came at Christianity in an odd way, I guess. I was not a Christian growing up, didn't have any Christians in my family, but I did have a skill set as a detective where I could evaluate whether witnesses were telling me the truth. And at 35, when I first became interested, I bought a Bible and I started to examine it to see if Christianity, if the Gospels, if the alleged eyewitness accounts of what happened in that first century environment with Jesus of Nazareth, was that true? Were those reports reliable? And given that skill set, I determined that Christianity was true. After I wrote books about the case for Christianity, the case for God's existence, I started teaching and speaking at local churches. And after a few of these, I started to realize that many of the Christians who would attend these church services had never thought about their Christian faith evidentially before. And some of them even asked me, do I really need to know this case? I mean, do I really need to know why this is true? So I started asking congregations, well, why are you guys Christians? Because for me, I became a Christian because of the evidence. But I discovered that's not true for everybody. And as I asked that question around the country, I got the same three answers in almost always the same order. So I started to predict this for the pastors where I would speak. I would say, hey, I'm going to ask your congregation, and I'll bet you they're going to give me these three answers, probably in this order. The first and most common response I get for why are you a Christian is, I was raised that way. My parents were Christians. I've been a Christian as long as I can remember. I was raised in the church. Okay, good answer. The second most popular answer is, I've had an experience that I can attribute to God. Something happened in my life. Either I was cured of something, I was delivered from something that demonstrated to me that Christianity was true. Good answer. The third question is kind of like the second, experiential. I used to be a jerk, and then I met Jesus. I'm not so much a jerk anymore. He transformed my life. Okay, great. As I thought about those three answers, I thought, wow, I've got a lot of family who are Mormon. They're LDS. And if you were to ask them, why are you a Mormon? They'll give you the same three answers in almost the same order. They've all been raised in the LDS church. They've all had an experience of the Holy Spirit, they say, that confirmed to them that Joseph Smith's a prophet and that Mormonism is true and the Book of Mormon is true. Do you see the problem? Our answers, it turned out, don't just sound like Mormon answers. They sound like Buddhist answers, like Muslim answers. Anyone of any worldview can say the same three things. I thought, well, okay, we need better answers. We need to know if this is true evidentially. Because otherwise, we're kind of sharing our testimony with each other, right? But I've got a testimony and they've got a testimony. This is the strength of testimony. How do we know if either of our views is actually true? Well, we have to take a new approach. If you're somebody who's been calling yourself a Christian, I get it. It's time to take another step. Because you're called, according to Peter in 1 Peter 3, you're called to be able to give the reason for the hope that you have. And Peter did it by always talking about what he saw as a direct evidence eyewitness. That's how he always proclaimed the gospel. We are called to be able to make the case for what we believe. So if you've been calling yourself a Christian, it's time to add the finish to the title. You're supposed to be a Christian case maker. And if you've been a Christian but not a Christian case maker, you've been living an abbreviated Christian life. We have really good answers for why Christianity is true. It's just time for both of us to learn them and become the best Christian case makers we can be.
And I say, if you're curious, right, for me, it was a matter of all three of those things. Like, I had grown up in the church, right? That was my whole thing. Not my whole thing, like my whole personality, but, you know, that was the whole reason I claimed to be a Christian and everything up until I actually became one for real. It's just because I grew up in the church and my family was, right? And that's just what we were. Experience with the Holy Spirit. I don't know necessarily the Holy Spirit, but like with God for sure, which, you know, is the Holy Spirit. But, you know, that. And then, you know, Jesus transformed me. Like, I was a completely different person. That's true. But what really set me apart from, you know, just those three answers was when I was like, okay, I need to know, you know, because you start getting into the arguments, and I was a very argumentative person, still am to some degree, right, but less than then. And I was like, all right, so if I'm talking to people and they don't believe me or they don't see it the same way I do, what can I tell them to help them see, right? And what do I believe? Why do I believe this if I can't even defend it in the same way, right? So I started looking at it and I was like, yo, this junk is actually true. And when something's true, it just makes you want to do it. You know, like literally just it being true made me have that much greater faith. So it was the evidence that really made the turning point, because not only that, but it also made me want to spread it. And that's what we're called to do. We're called to love our neighbor. And how much more can you love your neighbor with spreading the gospel, right? That's like the epitome of loving your neighbor, and much more so if they actually accept it. So That's what got me. So he's definitely right. He's definitely right.
I have to get asked this question, right? You Christians, you believe in something I can't see. You believe that God exists. Okay, that's kind of a preposterous claim, they would say. So if you're going to make that kind of crazy claim about a supernatural being that I don't see here with us today, well, then that burden of proof is on you to demonstrate why you think that invisible thing you're talking about actually exists. Well, okay, that can sometimes be a conversation stopper, right? Because it puts this entire evidential burden on us. We find ourselves in the next 30 minutes trying to make an evidential case for something, when in fact we both have a burden of proof. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Anytime you walk into a crime scene, you're going to see pieces of evidence in the crime scene. I've been in crime scenes with my partners, for example, where I will go in that crime scene and say, wow, given what I see here, I think the best suspect for this is the husband. Oh, my partner could stand next to me and say, I disagree. I'm looking at the same pieces of evidence you are, but I think the best explanation is his daughter. Okay. Well, both of us have a burden of proof now. I've got to make a case for why I think the husband did it, and my partner's got to make a case for why he thinks the daughter did it. Something very similar happens when we're trying to describe the universe the way it is. We see the same features of the universe. We see that it has a beginning, that it appears fine-tuned, that life comes into existence from non-life, that the life that does emerge appears to be designed, that there are conscious beings in the universe who...
Does life come from non-life? I don't know about that one. Let me let him rock, I guess. Let me see if he goes into it.
Seem to be free agents who can make free decisions. We sense these moral obligations in this universe that appear to be objective and transcendent. And we even think there are things that are truly evil. Yet we need to have a standard of good by which we could judge something that's truly evil. These are the features of the universe that both of us have to explain. Both of us have to explain those. Now, as a theist, I need to be able to make a case for why I think God is the best explanation for all that stuff. But if you're not a theist, if you're an atheist, you have a burden of proof of showing me how your cause best, your suspect best explains this stuff. You think you can get that with just space, time, matter, physics, and chemistry? That burden's on you. I have a burden, and you have a burden. We both have a burden to support what we believe at the crime scene. Don't let someone try to get you off the hook or get him off the hook by saying that there's no burden on that side. You're the only one who has a burden. No, we both have a burden, as it should be, because these are big claims about reality that have big consequences. Embrace your duty to make the case and help other people to see that they have an equal duty.
And he's right? And being a religious person, right, specifically Christian, we're told to have that patience. We're told to love our neighbors, right? So constantly when I'm getting into arguments with these people, at least in the comment section, right, they're always angry, or at least seeming angry, or being sarcastic, or taking the piss out of the argument, because they're not being serious about it. You know, they're giving all these half answers and stuff about, or not half answers, but they're always picking and choosing the things that need the least explaining, right? Like I was talking to this one guy, and I was like, well, Jesus claimed that he resurrected, or right, followers claimed he resurrected. And he's like, well, there's no evidence for the thing. So then there is same evidence that Julius Caesar resurrected. And I'm like, nobody claimed that Julius Caesar got up. Nobody claims that they saw Julius Caesar get up and like walking around and talking to people. It's like, what are you talking about? You know you're chatting nonsense. So like, pack it up. What's going on here? Right? And they would love to tell you about the moral side of it. They love to talk about some, oh, well, we're all humans and we all, you know, it's just things that are inherently wrong. How so? Where's that scale? Because if it's just you versus me, and then the free will argument too, they're like, how can you be predestined and have free will? And then they like to act like they can't understand it for real. And like low-key they can't, because it says the Bible will be or the mystery of God. You know, it's like it clouds it. I forget the exact verse, but it's basically saying that like you can't understand it without the faith, something like that. I'll put it up on the screen if I can find it. But you get the point, right? The evidence is there, one. And two, it's everything, like, it lines up. And you may say, well, those are the ramifications that you pick as a Christian. Like, no, those are just basic ramifications. Like, those are the specifications, right? The life, making life, right? We ain't ever seen one example of life coming from non-life. It has a beginning, right? What would have started that beginning? What could have done that? If every force has an equal opposite reaction, or if every reaction has an equal opposite reaction, it's impossible that there could have been a first action without there being a cause. You know what I'm saying? Fine-tuned. True. I think it's the odds thing, right? I think they say the odds for God making the universe is greater than it coming from randomity, right? Life comes into existence from life. We know that life appears to be designed. It does. Everything we do has a function, right? Existence of conscious beings, right? Explain consciousness. Explain how that works. We can't. And they may say, well, we just haven't got there yet. And it's like, We're going off of theories that were made like 200 years ago, gang. God has been ever present before that, bro. It used to, countries built on these ideals. Every country had some type of religion because it just made sense. Because it all stemmed from one place, so to speak, right? Because them flood stories, right? They came from somewhere. Anson Genesis Canada had a thing about the myth of dragons being in cultures all across the world. They had to come from somewhere, so it's likely that something like that existed, right? Why are these people all across the world coming up with the same image of something else? Why is everybody across the world coming up with some type of God? Why are they praying to something, worshiping something, sacrificing to something? These ideas had to come from somewhere. We see that from people, right? Look at the spread of something like trends, right? One person says this thing. Now everybody's saying aura. Now everybody's saying whatever, skibidi, whatever you want to say, right? These trends, they transcend cultures and they go. People in other freaking languages are saying this stuff, right? We got words in English that are in all languages, and brands and stuff like that. They transcend that stuff. Why would the same idea not be true back then? It's like, oh, we have iPhones. Every country on the planet is calling it an iPhone. Every single country, same thing. Like, oh, they have a god. Now we all have gods. We're all praying to something. We're all worshiping something because clearly they're doing something right. Something's getting done. They seen the sun and they're like, oh, they sacrificed to that. Now their plants are growing greener. So we got to try that too. Except they're just looking up to the sky when they're praying. So they think they're praying to the sun. And then they create a false god out of the sun. Right? But y'all don't want to hear that. I mean, my Christians do. But y'all other people, you ain't want to hear that. Anyway. Alright. That's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have some fantastic rest of your day. Peace.